I've been waiting for a package, and it's finally here. It's from Chase Bliss. They've got a brand new pedal out, and they're going to be sponsoring this video. Since I'm a huge fan of several of their other pedals, I'm really eager to check this out. As you can see, the pedal is called Lossy, and it seeks to replicate the degraded audio of the early World Wide Web, specifically low bitrate MP3s. So first things first, I'm going to plug in my Casio PT10. Since I know exactly what that keyboard sounds like, it should be a pretty good way of gauging what this effect is doing. So before we actually turn the pedal on, here's what the Casio sounds like on its own. Okay, now I'm going to turn it on. Quite a difference. Okay, let's try to figure out what's actually happening here. This diagram here shows the signal path. First, there's this filter. We can use this knob to turn it up. And then we can use this one to change the filter frequency. As you can see here, it's basically a bandpass filter, so it's just filtering out all the high end and the low end signal. There's also this switch that controls how steep the notch is. Next on our tour, we have reverb. I'm going to turn that up here. Oh, that's really nice. The manual says they tried to match the kind of reverb that was used by electronic artists in the 90s. I definitely hear it. As you can see from the diagram, depending on your settings, the reverb can live either at the very start of the signal chain or at the very end. Right now it's at the start. Next, I want to check out the loss section. This is kind of like the main event, the thing that's actually supposed to simulate low bitrate MP3s. Oh wow, that's exactly how I remember it. That chirpy, slushy sound really brings me back to a very specific moment in my life, actually. The year is 1999, and I've just graduated from high school in America, and then promptly moved to Switzerland so I can go to college. It's a plan that will turn out to be a complete disaster, but I don't know that yet. Anyway, for about 5 months, I live alone in this brand new apartment complex on the edge of campus. It's a nice place, but I'm pretty homesick. At night, when I'm not busy failing out of the remedial math program at this school, I record electronic music on my PC. At this point, I haven't really figured out what my deal is musically, so each song sounds wildly different from the last. Of course, as soon as I finish some music, I want to share it with my friends back in the States. But I quickly discovered that the raw audio files are way too big to send to my friends. So I use this MS-DOS program to turn my songs into MP3s. My computer is really slow, and it takes me about half an hour just to convert a single 3-minute song into an MP3. And then, once the MP3 is made, my computer's way too slow to play it back. Listen to this mess. Luckily, I soon discover a workaround. I can encode the MP3s at a much lower bitrate, and my computer can play them back beautifully. But there's a drawback. It makes my music sound weird and slushy. This is the original version, and this is the low bitrate version. Of course, that's an extreme example, but that's pretty much what this pedal is designed to do. Another cool mode that this thing has is packet loss. It simulates a bad data connection. Basically, it adds tiny gaps in the audio. If you want to make things really extreme, there's also phase jitter mode. Okay, we've heard how this thing sounds with the Casio. Let's switch to another synth. It's a funny thing about this pedal. A while ago, Chase Bliss released a pedal called Generation Loss that simulates the lo-fi audio of 70s and 80s tape technology. I absolutely love that pedal, and I use it all the time, much more than I ever would have imagined. Now, this pedal, Lossy, is the obvious successor to Generation Loss. One simulates analog degradation and the other digital. Despite being very young in the 1980s, I have many childhood memories associated with tape, whereas MP3s were the sound of my college years, and as such have a completely different emotional resonance. Okay, back to the pedal. As you can see, I've pulled out my Volca keys. It's such a simple synth that it should be really easy to hear what the pedal's doing. Now that we got this hooked up, I think it's a good time to talk about the freeze modes. I'm going to play a note, and then I'm just going to hold down the left button. You see how that light turned green? That means we're in solid state freeze mode. It does pretty much exactly what you'd think. That note is going to last forever, and I'm free to play whatever I want on top of it. But there's also another freeze mode. You see how that light just turned red? That's what Chase Bliss calls slushy mode. It's not exactly frozen because it's taking in new sound all the time. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we've seen what the pedal can do. Let's make some music. Before we do, I should mention that there are a whole bunch of features I'm not covering in this video. For example, there are many hidden options that let you do things like set the reverb length. There's also a noise gate, modulation options, as well as a MIDI input that lets you control just about every parameter. Okay, let's make some music. I've got Ableton Live up on the screen. I'm just going to find a quick drum loop from the loops that come with Ableton Live. I think that one's good. I'm trying not to overthink this. I'm going to pull it into the project. I want this to be a bit slower, so I'm going to bring the tempo down. That seems good. Okay, let's record a bass part. The vocal keys kind of specializes in sawtooth waves, but I think I actually want to go with a square wave instead. I'm going to detune the pitch a little bit. Okay, now let's turn Lossy on. Since this is a bass sound, we want to make sure to set the filter accordingly. Okay, time to record some bass notes. Okay, pretty basic. I'm just going to fix the timing quickly, and then I'm going to add a second note to this bass part. Okay, time for a lead part. So up until now I've been playing it pretty safe. The effect that Lossy is having on the signal's pretty subtle. For the lead, I kind of want to turn everything up and make it as wild as possible. When my plan backfired, it just sounds like a flute. That's one thing about the MP3 compression. You don't really know what you're going to get. It really sounds like a flute. I never would have thought. Overall, I'm really glad this thing got made. The world of effects pedals is awash in reverbs, delays, distortions, etc. And it can sometimes feel like there's just a set number of different types of effects out there. So it's really nice to see a pedal that does something completely different. Whether or not you find the garbled sounds of bad MP3s meaningful or, dare I say, beautiful, depends very much on who you are and what you lived through. For me, even hearing the sounds of AOL Instant Messenger after all these years, it's a little magical. One thing I forgot to mention is that Lossy started its life as a plugin by Goodhertz. I like this ad copy. Since the dawn of the second recording format, mankind has longed for the aesthetic imperfections of the previous recording format. Which got me thinking, I wonder if there's any technology from today that people will look back on wistfully. Maybe two-dimensional photos will seem really cool and retro someday. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could give it a like. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, now's a great time to subscribe. I've got a lot of fun videos coming up. I've taken the sound of the vocal keys being run through Lossy and turned it into a sample library. That's now available to patrons. Speaking of which, the Patreon costs just $5, and every month I release an exclusive sample library just for patrons. Okay, I think that's it. See you soon.